when you're a firm owner, you look at yourself and you look at your success and you go, this is been driven by, my ambition, my technical knowledge, my ability to relate to clients. And anyone else you look at is never going to measure up as well as you probably see yourself. And the reality is you're probably not as good as that, but that's not the point. The point, because it's perception. Everything's perception.
I'm Brannon Poe, and this is the Accountants Flight Plan podcast, where you can enjoy engaging conversations about mergers and acquisitions and accounting practice management. Listen in on strategies to build a more fun and valuable accounting firm. All right, welcome to the Accountants Flight Plan podcast. This is our first recording in 2025, and I am really pleased to welcome back Giles Pearson on our podcast today. Giles is a fellow of Chartered Accountants Australia, New Zealand. Is a 25-year veteran of public accounting, 18 years as a tax and private business partner in a large firm. He co-founded Accountests in 2016 to help firms hire faster and with confidence by the use of high-quality testing and assessment solutions developed specifically for public accounting. Accountests helps firm owners and hiring managers avoid bad hires by providing skills and personality testing options for use in the hiring process. These tests cover CAS, tax and audit, and from college graduate to senior manager. And recently, and this is something I really want to dive into with today, is developing testing to assist in leadership development and training. I'm excited to hear about that. Welcome, Giles. Welcome back, I should say.
Hi, Brannon. It's great. It's great to be here, and excited to be your first guest for 2025.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's been a couple of years since you came on, and I always like to start by telling our audience, how you got into the business that you're in. So how did you go from public practice into this niche of helping firms hire?
So, as you said in your introduction, 25 years with PwC. So when we say large firm, it is a large firm. But PwC in New Zealand, which is very different animal to PwC in the US. So we were our office was 40 staff, 4 partners. A pretty normal public accounting experience for me, I guess. But one of the things that really frustrated me in the time that I was there was hiring people and finding out that when they started, they weren't what was on the tin. So we went through the usual process of reviewing resumes and interviewing and all these things, and ended up with people who didn't necessarily perform as we expected, and the ones you remember, of course, are the ones that really upset you, and we've all been there. So we actually went out looking for testing, because it was like, I just can't keep doing this. We need to know, particularly on skills. We need to know where they're at. Are they where we need them to be? And we couldn't find anything that we thought was of a level that of professionalism that would fit with what we were trying to portray to candidates and give us the information we needed. So when I finished at PwC, it was like, here's a little itch I can scratch. I don't want to work too hard. Let's build some tests to help firms do what I wanted to do. So we started that back in 2016 in New Zealand. Road tested that in a market that we really understood well. Took it to Australia, took it to the UK, 2022 to the USA, and that's really has ever since 22 has been our total focus market. So we're I'm spending all my time thinking about the way that public accounting works in the US, and making sure that our testing is right on point for what firms are looking for.
Yeah, that's great. You definitely identified a need, and pretty timely too, I might add. I think the staffing challenges have intensified. um, in the last 4 or 5 years, especially. And, are you seeing anything like currently in terms of the talent availability in the United States? Are you seeing any trends that stand out?
Look, I don't think it's changed. It's not getting any harder. I think but it's not really getting any easier. And when you look out towards, the pipeline, that you look at that and you go, well, nothing's going to change. If you look at the pipeline, I think the numbers coming through are going to continue to reduce. But the big unknown in all of this is where technology is going to impact, particularly people starting their careers, and what are they going to do? How is technology going to change that? We're not there yet. The jury is definitely still out on what that's going to look like. But I think most people would agree is that technology is going to continue to take away those more mundane tasks. And so I think in terms of where does that look out 10 years maybe in terms of what staffing looks like, that sort of pyramid structure is just going to continue to squeeze at the bottom and probably push out at the top. And that's going to be a challenge for firms, for those doing, offshoring. That market is going to change. But right now, it's really hard. And, if firms are getting any, especially smaller firms, if they're getting any reasonable applicants for roles, then they're doing pretty well.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Your company is based on testing and avoiding bad hires. I think a lot of owners or managers are just happy to have any hires, and and I don't know if they kind of sort them out afterwards, but I think as a business owner, you hear the old adage, hire slow and fire fast, which I still think is the right approach. But with talent being in high demand, does that necessarily accelerate the hiring process? And how do you fit testing into a hiring process if you're in a situation where you kind of have to move quickly to get a good candidate?
Look, I think you're totally right. It's and the hire slow, fire fast. That makes an awful lot of sense until you're on the ground, and then it's like you've got a candidate who looks credible. They come and talk to you. If they're in the market for a role, they're likely to be talking to others. Whoever makes the offer to them first has got first mover advantage, and that's so being able to evaluate them and get an offer there quickly is hugely valuable for a firm. And I guess that's where they're trying to expedite the whole process. And it's not just the testing, but it's the whole process. And there's no reason why a firm can't go from receiving a resume to making a hire in a week. And that's and that just requires actually some dedication to the cause. And firms we're all built as accountants on following processes, using checklists, making sure that we keep our quality up by having a defined process by which we do things, and having the checks and balances, and having the four eyes review, as we always talked about, having other people look into what's going on. So that's how we as a profession have always developed a quality product. And it's just amazed me and scares me when I look back at what we were doing. But when firms are hiring, they're often all over the place. And so there's no process, there's no defined thought at the beginning of how we're gonna do this quickly but get all the information we need. And that's where I think testing is part of that. But part of it is just having the processes set up in advance, and the the times in people's diaries for interviews, knowing who's on your interview panel, having time in their diaries for doing, shortlisting, and having your offer, completely documented and ready to go. These are the things that firms are often not doing. But I guess the testing, to my mind, is just such a key part of that, because you can do the testing after you've done a phone screen. You can do the testing and then hit that first interview with really everything you want to know about the person. You're going to find out more through testing than you are through interviewing. But you can get to that interview, and really after you've done a competency-based interview with someone, what else do you need to know before you can either decide to make an offer or go, actually, no, thanks. So you get to move fast, but with the confidence of having turned all the stones over.
Hey, Accountants Flight Plan listener. Are you thinking about selling your practice or curious about how much your firm is worth? Having sold firms for over 20 years, we've seen 8 key factors that come into play when determining the value of a firm. Download our free Valuation Key Factors report to assess your firm's value today. You can find it by searching Poe Group Advisors Valuation Report or visiting PoeGroupAdvisors.com. Thanks for listening, and now back to the episode.
Now, do you have early in the process testing? It sounds like you do. It sounds like, you see a good resume. Testing is one of the first things in the process. It sounds like with some of your testing. Do you have the later testing as well? That's like a little bit more of a in-depth, like, okay, we got a candidate. We like this candidate. But here's one final thing before we make the hire. They're different. Are there tests for different parts of the hiring process?
Not really. I guess what we've developed is a set of each of the sorts of testing that firms might or perhaps should do, which is the skills. So show me that you've got the technical knowledge to do the role, and we can talk about the sort of advent of AI and all that stuff. But do you have the technical knowledge? Your personality testing, so show me how you like to approach your work, how you're going to get on with clients and team members, and then the ability testing, which is just that raw thinking, problem solving power. And ideally you do those before the first interview, but firms don't always do that, and we have firms who use that through the process, and we've even got firms who use the testing after they've decided to appoint somebody. They've made them the offer, and then they do the testing, which is, there is still value, because it means that when they come on board, you know how they're going to work, or what their preferred work style is, and how technically competent they are. So what training options are we going to offer on day one? What sort of work are we going to give them? So you can still improve your whole onboarding process, but clearly at that point you've not really used the testing to make the good hire. You've judged it on pretty much on an interview at that point. But yeah, our suggestion would be, if you want to hire fast, do the testing before the first interview. Do the interview. Do you really need to do another interview? Perhaps you do. Perhaps at that second interview, that's where maybe the firm owners come in but it can be a much softer interview second time round, because you've done all the hard competency-based stuff, and it's really then about the firm owners being comfortable that this is a person who's going to, who they relate to, if you like. But obviously, at that point, you're not wanting to hire people who just look like you. So but it gives the firm owners maybe a chance to at least see somebody before they turn up on day one.
Right. I find that good candidates, high quality candidates, don't mind a thorough hiring process. It actually gives them some comfort that, hey, this is a company that takes its team and its culture very seriously. It gives them some confidence that, hey, I'm going with a good team here. Do you find any pushback, on testing, or do you find that it kind of gives the candidates a little bit of assurance that they're joining a good?
Yeah, look, that is a really good point. And to be honest, the people who are most nervous about testing are the hiring managers. So I think the candidates are fine with it. We don't hear any resistance really from candidates in doing the testing. As you say, they get it, and they want to work with a firm that has good processes to make sure that that they're hiring the right people, and that that they can think about the fact that the others in the firm have been through a good process as well. The hiring managers are nervous because they if they haven't used something like our testing before, they're going, are my candidates all just going to walk on me because I asked them to do this? And I think and I get that, because people don't like to be judged, and they're probably going, the candidates are not going to want to be judged. And I think it's all about the way you explain to the candidate why you're doing this. And I always say to our clients is don't just send them an email going, hey, we're going to give you these tests, here's a link to go and do them. Pick up the phone, talk to them about what it is you're doing. We are still in a people business, and candidates really value having that explained to them. And it's not like you're having to do this to 20 people. In reality, in firms, you're going to be giving testing to probably at most 3 people. In reality, likely could be 1 or 2. So it's it's about making the candidate feel comfortable and knowing that this is not simply like you've got to reach this grade, or we're going to we're just going to discontinue our interest with you, because that's not what the testing's about. It's about, show me where you're at.
Yeah.
And are you in my ballpark? And, I might, if I'm really struggling, I will probably take on somebody who's not really as good as I want them to be. I know that, we get to have a conversation about that. We talk about the training program. We talk to the candidate about how do we, we're going to supercharge your career here. This is what we're here to do. Here's how we're going to do it. And that's a really positive conversation, because, most candidates, the money is important, but their career is the most important. And going into a firm that's talking to them about how they're going to develop their career is likely to be the thing that's going to get you over the line, even if your salary offers, 3,000 or 5,000 less than maybe somebody else who doesn't do that.
Right. Nice. Do you find have you been surprised by some of the applicants who are just completely incapable of the job they're applying for? Have you got some funny stories to share about some of the things that some of your clients may have encountered?
It is amazing, I think, how people can, you read their resume and they're saying they've done 4 years of tax, and then you give them a test that is applicable to 4 years of tax, and they can only get halfway through it, and they get most of it wrong, and you go, how can you, what have you possibly been doing in your role that means almost nothing? And so bookkeepers is the classic example, and because I think in bookkeeping and for CAS firms hiring bookkeepers, anyone can call themselves a bookkeeper. There are, there's no qualification basis, and you've helped, a friend out, maybe doing some books for them, and you can call yourself a bookkeeper. And the firms constantly tell us about the stories of people who they hire who, they assume that they know debits and credits and they can take stuff through to month-end close, and actually they struggle to even know how to operate a QBO or Xero to process an invoice. It's so that's it sort of the real benefit of the testing is to just help firms weed out these people who are they're just nowhere near, and as you said, firms want to hire a body, it's like we need another person, but most of them are smart enough to go, we don't need, we're not that desperate to hire somebody who knows nothing is just going to frustrate.
They'll make a mess. Somebody could make a real mess of some books. So, well, so, in the intro, I mentioned that your company is now starting to dip into leadership testing and training and development. Tell us more about what you're doing around that.
So we started with skills testing. That was the thing that I guess always frustrated me. But we realized that when firms want to work with a company that's doing testing, they'd actually like them to do everything. So all the sorts of testing that they might want. So we then developed a personality profile that is specific to accounting. So it's a Big Five profile. So think of something like predictive index. But what we did was we developed one that was based on the core requirements. It was actually a study that was done out of the UK of, what are the core requirements for success in sort of the modern accounting industry. And of those, there were 4 that you could measure through a personality profile. And that was ethics, relationships, thinking, and coping. So by thinking, it's that sort of problem solving, and by coping, it's like stress tolerance, and how to deal with sort of multiple tasks. So we developed a profile that was specifically around those areas, and perhaps less focused on sort of more sort of general other personality traits. And we then got a whole lot of accountants to go through that, so that when people use the profile, they can compare their candidate to a pool of other accountants. So it's very, again, just like all our testing, I guess, very specific. So we started using that in a hiring context, and obviously people want to know, what are the areas of somebody's preferred working style that may cause us issues when they come work for us. And in a hiring context, the profile will give you, show you what those are, give you the interview questions that you need to ask to dig into those areas where, you, me as the candidate have shown through filling out the profile that, maybe I have a low affiliation, so struggle with relationships. How do I cope with that in a work sense, or do I not cope? And that's actually going to cause a problem. So once we've done that for hiring, it's like, well, actually, using the same process, how can we help firms with their leadership development? Because it's the same thing, right? It's about what is your preferred way to work. And if you're a firm and you've got somebody who's a manager or a senior manager and you want to bring them through to ownership, you're having ongoing discussions with them about how, what are the things that you want them to do as the owner to end up looking like you've got something, a way of working that I'm going to be really happy to have you on my team as a fellow owner of this business. And, that's a pretty fraught process often. Owners often have a high expectation of people, probably higher than is justified. And the manager or the senior manager often thinks, why am I not already here? What's holding me back? So what we've done is provide another version of the profile, which actually helps facilitate some of these discussions. So how do I look compared to an ideal firm owner? So that's part of the what the profile then shows you. And then where are the gaps and what are the talking points, if you like. So it's good for the coachee, if you like. So the manager, the senior manager, here's what I look like. Here's some things that I can look to work on. But for their coach, and whether that's ideally an external coach, but might be one of the firm owners. Again, here's some of the development points that this person's showing me they perhaps should be looking at. Let's have a discussion, because actually that might be a bit different to some of the, or it might be different, but it might also actually just sort of put the spotlight on things that I'm already seeing in their day-to-day work. But somebody independent has now highlighted that. I now feel more safe to have a discussion with this person about, things that may well be frustrating me anyway, but it's hard to articulate in what is a small team and people who you're working with, day to day.
Why do you think owners have higher expectations than are realistic for team members?
Oh, look, I guess I've been there and done all this, and I just think that's how people often are. It's like when you're a firm owner, you look at yourself and you look at your success and you go, this is being driven by my ambition, my technical knowledge, my ability to relate to clients, and anyone else you look at is never going to measure up as well as you probably see yourself. And the reality is you're probably not as good as that, but that's not the point. The point, because it's perception, everything's perception. So when you're looking at somebody coming through, you see all the faults. You don't necessarily see the good points. And there's always reticence, I think, as firm owners. It's like, this is probably after getting married, this is probably the second most important decision you're going to make, especially in a smaller firm, is bringing through somebody who's going to form part of your team, and it's a dance. I guess maybe unlike getting married, if you're in a relationship with somebody and you think it's not working out, you can both just walk away. In a firm, it's not as easy as that, or the consequences can be much more significant. So, I think firm owners are just rightfully slow and cautious about what they do, and what we're trying to do is just help them with some building blocks, I guess. And we have also got a team version of this, so people can actually look at their whole teams with this another variant of the same thing, and look at how people relate to each other, and how to develop that whole diversity aspect, or look at your diversity and look at diversity of thought, and making sure that if you're hiring people, you're looking for those different perspectives, rather than ending up with a whole firm of people who are all the same. We sort of know that doesn't work, but it's still a comfortable place to be, to have a whole lot of mini-me's. But we know in our hearts that's actually not the way that we're going to produce the best result for us and for our clients.
Well, this is interesting stuff, Giles. I appreciate you coming on. I've got a couple of questions before we close off. I always like to get my guests to recommend a book or share with our audience what they're reading right now. You have any books to share?
So I guess I'm not a big fan of management books. I've read a few in my time. I know that it's great to get ideas. Implementing those ideas is often a real challenge for people. So what I prefer to do is actually read books that inspire me in a business sense, and actually create and help to drive that ambition. So if I'm looking for something that's going to motivate me to develop my business, I'd go to something more like a Phil Knight, with Shoe Dog, or Yvonne Chouinard. How do these people, Richard Branson, how have they gone from nothing to, especially the early days of these business developments? I find that so motivating. And I think if you want to get something that really makes you want to, get up in the morning and dig in, I find that those sort of books are the ones that do that for me.
Yeah, Phil Knight was a CPA as well. I think he might have been Price Waterhouse, wasn't he?
Oh gosh, I'm not sure now. I'm not sure.
Anyway.
But from selling shoes out of the back of his back of his pickup to, that transition and the hardships he went through and the points where he nearly gave up. It's just amazing.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Well, Giles, what's the best way for people to find out about Accountests and to connect with you online?
So they can go to accountests.com and have a look at what we're doing, and there's a DIY demo on there people can do. If they want to look for me on LinkedIn is the best way. So just Giles Pearson at LinkedIn.
Nice, Giles. Thank you so much.
Nice to talk to you, Brannon.
Likewise. Thanks for listening to the Accountant's Flight Plan podcast. You can keep the momentum going by subscribing and sharing your thoughts with us. Visit our website at pogroupadvisors.com for more resources, and tune in next time for more exciting conversations like this one.